Hi everyone, thank you for tuning into my very first video. My name's Erica and this is my new channel. I don't have a name for it yet, but basically my channel is just going to be about books that I've read and what they're about without giving away too much so that maybe you'd be interested in reading them too. I am an avid book reader. I've loved to read ever since I was a kid. I also love to write, and most of the videos that you see on like YouTube are like about story times and whatnot, but I have not led a very interesting life. So I lived my life through books and other people's stories and, writing my own. So on here, I'll just be, like I said, talking about the books that I've read. I'm not going to be criticizing because I'm not a critic. I'm not going to be talking about if the writing style is good or, if there's grammar issues or anything like that. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to just talk about new books, books that I've already read, or books that are new to me, new authors that I've met, because a lot of the books that I read are through my Kindle. I love my Kindle, but I also love hardcover books too. But the cool thing about Kindle is that I can carry around a bunch of books, thousands of books at one time. And if I want to hop between books, I don't have to have like 3 books in my purse. I can just have my one Kindle that provides me with a bunch of books. And no, this is not sponsored by Kindle. This is just my personal love of books and the easy access that I have with them through this little device and the new artists that I've met and just the awesomeness of being able to have access to so many different kinds of books for someone like me who loves to read. So yeah, and today the book that I want to talk about is called The Class Reunion. So I have my little notes here. If you see me looking down, that's why, just so I can, make sure I tell the little bits without, like I said, giving away too much, and hoping that perhaps you would want to read it, or if you already have, you could just tell me what you thought about it, and when you do read it, just let me know what you think about it anyways. So again, the book is called The Class Reunion, and it is by someone named N.L. Hinkens. I have not heard of this person before until, finding their stuff on the Kindle, and it was recommended to me because a lot of the books I like to read are kind of like mysteries and psychological thrillers. I do love romances. I love all kinds of books. I don't really like nonfiction books, but all fiction books I'm open to, and this was one that was recommended for me. Also, before I continue, I say a lot, so deal with me or bear with me on that. I'm trying to work on that, but it's kind of just something that I've always done, and I apologize ahead of time. So yes, The Class Reunion by N.L. Hinkens. And it is a psychological thriller, a suspense, and what else do they describe it as? Yeah, a psychological suspense thriller. So I'll read to you the synopsis, and it is: you can run, but I will find you. Working as a successful PI in Los Angeles, Heather Nelson hasn't seen any of her high school classmates from Iowa in over a decade. When she makes a last-minute decision to attend her class reunion, she and her once tight-knit group of friends are surprised at dinner by delivery of an elaborate forget-me-not floral arrangement. But the accompanying card contains an ominous message: you deserve to die. A message they brush off as an elaborate prank at first. When several of the group come close to death in the following weeks, they begin to suspect that the sender of the message has deadly intentions. One by one, the friends contact Heather to divulge secrets from their past, convinced that the skeletons they are hiding put them at risk. Fearing for their lives, they beg Heather to return to Iowa and track down the person they believe is trying to kill them. But her friends only think they know her. Heather is hiding an explosive secret of her own. Is she really an intended victim in a deadly game of revenge, or a twisted killer? So yes, and yeah, so let's go on with what this book is about. So again, as you can hear from the synopsis, Heather Nelson is the main character. She works as a PI in LA. The book takes place in today's time, and we're introduced to other characters later, her friends that were mentioned in the synopsis as well. So yes, she's working on a case, then this is how the book begins. It begins with her working on a case, like she's scoping out somebody that she's supposed to be obviously investigating. And from the start, we know that something horrible happened to her on this day that she's doing the investigation, because she talks about, what does she talk about? She talks about an accident that took place in her life years ago, or at least she's thinking of the accident. And she's awake right now following her subject because she doesn't sleep the night before the anniversary of the accident. So while she's trailing her subject, we are given a brief background of her. She's from Iowa. She has a sister named Violet who was involved in the accident, and she doesn't ever really want to go back to Iowa because of this unfortunate accident. And there's more, but you'll discover that if you read it. I definitely don't want to give it away. I just want to give little pieces. So as she's waiting for her subject to come out of the restaurant, she gets an She gets an email from a very old friend who she hasn't spoken to since this accident that we don't know anything about. And the email's from someone named Reagan Evans, who she used to know as Reagan Butler. So Reagan obviously got married. And this email relays the message that Heather's friend, Lindsay, died from a rattlesnake bite when she fell off her bike, which slipped in some mud. And the thing about it is, Heather's like, this doesn't make any sense because Lindsay is an avid bike rider. It's kind of like something she does all the time, if I can recall. I think it's like her profession or something. So it doesn't make sense that the girl would slip on some mud. But anyway, Heather's super gutted by this information. This woman was like her best friend. And it was the only friend that she kept in contact with since she left Iowa. So she hasn't kept up with her until recently, when they only started emailing or reaching out on a holiday or something, because apparently Lindsay is the only friend who knows the truth about this accident that we are not being told about. And I guess it's a really bad accident that Heather was involved in because, well, I won't tell you, but it's not good. Whatever Heather did is not good. So Lindsay's been able to keep it secret, and Heather keeps, thinking about the accident. But apparently Heather is also keeping a secret about Lindsay too, that we don't know. Obviously, we're still in the beginning of the book. So along with this email, Reagan says that there's a class reunion coming up and they want to honor Lindsay and that Heather should really come. And as we know, Heather wants nothing to do with Iowa again. She wants nothing to do with her old friends. She just wants her whole separate life. And Heather, she goes home and she's leaving the stakeout and she thinks about the death of her friend. She gets confused as to how that could happen because Lindsay was always a big athlete, and she knows the terrains of her trails. Like I said, Lindsay, this is like her thing. So Heather's very confused as to how she could have had an accident on the trail. So for her to ride on a muddy trail, it just seemed wrong to Heather. And since she's an investigator, her little spidey senses are already going off. So anyway, Heather calls Reagan, and there's a little conversation where Heather finally decides that she wants to go to the class reunion. So she arrives, and Reagan's waiting for her at the airport. Heather isn't entirely thrilled that she's agreed to stay with Reagan and her husband because apparently there's some kind of bad blood between the two of them. And we take a little walk down memory lane at this point to find out what happened. Heather remembers Reagan's personality from when they were in high school, and Reagan was apparently controlling and uptight. And from what I could gather from the description, she was also basically a conniving bitch back in high school. So Reagan and Heather were they're both running for class president in their senior year. Heather was in the lead, and that was until some rumors started swirling around about Heather that she had HIV. It's like, who the fuck comes up with that sort of rumor to spread about somebody? It's kind of why I didn't have friends in high school. I like to keep to myself. And I know how people can be in high school. It's like that's when it's the worst because everybody is, how do you say? Everybody's kind of coming into their own. So there's a lot of self-consciousness. There's a lot of, oh my God, what's that word I'm looking for? When you are insecure. There's a lot of insecurities, there's a lot of jealousy, so people, usually chicks, will start saying things about each other because they're jealous of another. Even if they're the most popular girl in school, they're still insecure because they want to stay popular. They may not be smart, so they'll say fucked up stuff about smart girls, they bully, this and this and that. So I'm just glad that I kept myself mostly in high school and was never involved in any awkward drama during that time. Not in middle school, not even in elementary school. Actually, never mind, in middle school I did have an issue with a human that was not started by me, but that's not what this is about. Anyways, so yeah, Heather is having some rumor running around about her that she's got HIV. Super fucked up. And so Heather's like, she's always thought it was Reagan who started the rumor because Reagan was going against her, you know, like I said, as class president. And it only started swirling around when Heather was in the lead. And as we already know, the Reagan apparently was a conniving bitch and very controlling. And so after that rumor started swirling around, obviously nobody was voting for Heather anymore, and Reagan won the race. And so being there with her now, Heather wasn't happy about the reunion. And what does it say? As they meet up, there's like an awkward hug, and Reagan begins to go on about her life. And we learn she has a daughter who's 9. And once they get to her house, Heather meets the daughter, whose name is Lucy, and she meets Reagan's husband, whose name is Dave. So they eat dinner, and Heather has Reagan drive her out to where Lindsay died. Heather mourns, you know, the loss of her friend, and she starts looking around to see if she can find any clues and to see, you know, if there's any bike patterns or anything weird. And then she finds like this random hook with a handle just a few feet away from where Lindsay's body was found. And she gets like this cold shiver. So you know how when you have like the goosebumps when you know something's wrong, or someone tells you something very awkward and uncomfortable that you can't believe is true, but you know it's true. You know what I'm talking about. So Heather gets these goosebumps, this shiver up her spine when she sees this random hook with a handle. And what does she say? She thinks that it's, you know, a part of how Lindsay died. She obviously doesn't think it was an accident. She thinks it's a trap that was made to catch the wheel of Lindsay's bike. So the next day, or the day of the reunion, finally comes around, and Heather goes with Reagan. Dave, the husband, couldn't go because he had Lucy, and Lucy got sick. And before the reunion begins, Heather is reconnected with the rest of her old friends. And there's a dude named Josh who's a doctor, and there's a Marco guy who's a restaurateur, and Sydney. Reagan has them sitting up. Where does it say? Oh, sorry. My handwriting's a little sloppy, obviously, to the point where I can't read it sometimes. But anyway, Reagan has them, like, she's got them all there before the reunion starts so that they can help her set up the reunion. And you know, they're catching up and things are going normal, and then it gets to the point where the reunion is all set up and people start arriving, and we're sitting at the table with, you know, the friends, and someone delivers them a giant floral arrangement. This comes from, you know, where the synopsis that I read. So Reagan naturally thinks they're for her because she's very self-involved, and she thinks the world obviously twirls around her and that she's so great and this and this and that. So she, you know, She thinks it's a thank you for all her hard work for the reunion, but Sydney says, well, there are forget-me-nots, and it's kind of strange. And she says, let's see who they're from. Reagan takes out the card and gasps because the card reads, you deserve to die. And they're about to hand the note, and or actually they're trying to figure out how to handle the note, but they decide to ignore it because they think it's a prank. And next we find Heather back in LA. And so she just gets home from grocery shopping when she gets a frantic call from Reagan, who says someone tried to kill her and Marco. She wants to tell Heather, or she tells Heather to come back to investigate. But there's not enough plausible evidence to do so. And Heather has to get paid for her time because she is a private investigator. This is how she makes her money, and she's not going to just go back just because, her friend told her to, whatever. She needs evidence. So then Heather calls Marco to see what he thinks, and Marco has no idea, and he doesn't have any leads himself, but also he wants her to come back to investigate too. So, P.S. There's yet another secret that is to be revealed later during a conversation between Reagan and Heather, but that's for you to find out. And yeah, it's a good secret too. I kind of figured it out later, because things were not making sense with some of the story, and I'm like, I think I know what's going on here, and I was right. But anyway, if you read it, you'll find out, and you'll be like, wow, that's a big pot of tea that's been spilled. But anyways, Sydney then calls, and she asks Heather to return as well to investigate. Josh was the only one who didn't reach out, and she actually wanted to talk to him because he seemed like very even-mannered. But after a call with Sydney, she headed out for a job following a rich kid who was getting into trouble. And what's the deal with rich kids? They are always doing things they have no business doing. I think it's just because, they're bored because they have all the money and they don't need to work hard for anything. And they're just like, well, let me get into trouble and see what I can get away with. But anyways, so once she finishes that, she goes home again and she shifts through her mail and she finds a little envelope. And she opens it and she pulls it out, and the card reads, once a killer, always a killer. I'm like, whoa, Heather, what the fuck did you do? Okay, who did you kill? So then this is where I'm definitely going to leave you off, because this is where obviously the story starts to roll, and this is where the story really begins. So, I hope you're intrigued enough to read the book. I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading more books by this author, N.L. Hinkens. I haven't come across any yet. There's just so many books that I love to read, and so, yeah, if you have read it, or if you do read it, I would love to hear what you think about the book, if you thought it was awesome, or if you thought it was lame, or whatever. And if you could figure out some of the secrets before they were actually revealed, because I like to do that, especially when it's some sort of mystery book. I like to try and solve it before everything comes to light, just to test my own little investigative skills and see if I can read clues and shit like that, because, what if something awkward happens to me in real life? I like testing myself with books like this. But, yeah, there were definitely some sneaking suspicions I had, like I said, and it was definitely a good read. Also, I am a writer too, like I said, and I have a book published, self-published on the Amazon, and the second part, or the 1.5 part of it, is coming out before I release the second book, and I'm going to insert the little book trailer here. be awesome if you could check out my book as well. It is called Of Two Minds, and it's about this guy named Saxon Andrew Wolfe and this woman named Devin Giovanna McKenna, and they are very much alike, but also very different. And Devin basically wants nothing to do with Saxon, and he wants everything to do with her, but he's kind of a slutbag whore, and she doesn't want to date a slutbag whore. She wants an actual good man, but he is very charming, I guess you could say, and he actually does like her. He doesn't want to treat her like, just a piece of ass. But there's a lot of issues for them, and it's not an easy relationship at all. And Saxon actually has a very big secret of his own that could definitely ruin what they have. So yeah, I hope you want to check it out. And the little novella, which is basically something that has happened between, or the novella that I've written, is, like I said, it's book 1.5, so it's between what's happening between book 1 and what's happened between book 2. And book 2 will be released sometime later. Book 1.5, which is called Of Two Worlds, will be released in April. What exact date I don't have yet, but it's going to be in April. And I'm just doing some finishing touches on it and making sure that it's pretty good. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed. I hope you want to check out my personal book, and I really definitely hope you want to check out the book I just told you about here, which is The Class Reunion by N.L. Hinken, and it is available on Amazon. And I think it's probably paperback, but I think it's also free if you have like the Amazon Kindle Prime. You can just borrow the book and whatever. It's also available on Audible, so if you don't like to read, you can just listen to it. But yeah, thank you again so much for watching my video and for checking it out. Like I said, this is my first video. Definitely not the best videos because I don't do this. This is a new thing for me, but I'm very excited to keep doing more and sharing more books. And most likely I'll make more channels as well, talking about other things that I love. But yeah, so thanks. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.